Welcome everyone. My name is Ebru and I'm the founder of Legal Design Turkey. And I'm also I'm an ambassador of European Legal Technology Association, like Anders. Today, me and my team members from the Legal Design Turkey, İdi, Sinan, Bilge, Damla, Buket, Ezgi and Emine will be moderating. And we are very much looking forward to Anders' session. And now I would like to give floor to him to hear his insights about himself and how to build up a legal tech company. So the floor is yours, Anders.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the introduction, Ebru. Very much appreciated. And as you mentioned, my name is Anders. I am working for the Danish legal tech company Contractbook. And I'm here today to try and make how to start a legal tech company as concrete as I possibly can. I'll be using the technology we sell to law firms and banks, accounting houses, organizations on a daily basis, and try to explain how simple it really is to actually start a legal tech company and how to make money doing that. So first, a little bit about the agenda today. My focus will be mainly on the building blocks of establishing a legal tech company, but I will also touch briefly upon Contractbook as a company, just so you understand where we're coming from and what we're doing. I'll be looking a little bit into Legal Tech 101, just so I'm sure that you guys are on the same page as me when I start unloading buzzwords, and none of it makes sense unless I take the time to do that. Then I'm going to look into what it actually takes to build a legal tech solution or company. And my focus will be some very simple building blocks that you put together in order to establish a company. Based on these building blocks, I will have a lot of help from Ebru and her team in running a workshop in which you will get the chance to share ideas on how to establish a legal tech company. What type of company would you want to establish? What kind of documents would you want to offer to clients? What kind of services would you associate with those documents? After the workshop, we will have a very short 2-minute presentation from each of the groups based on the company they have chosen to establish. And then in the end, there will be time for Q&A. So that's going to be the plan for the next 1.5 hours. So first of all, a little bit about me, a little bit about Contractbook actually. Contractbook is a Danish legal tech company. We are, I would say, a medium-sized company with around 85 employees. We have quite a few users spread across 92 countries, Turkey included. We work actually in 2 different ways. We work with medium-sized enterprises and we work with larger law firms. The thing that's a little bit unique about us is that we are one of the only legal tech companies in the world who are owned by Google. That gives us access to some fairly unique talent and resources when we develop these kinds of legal tech solutions. And honestly, it's a lot of fun to have that kind of capacity. In trying to explain a little bit about what Contractbook actually is, what we do is we do everything related to legal documents, and we are trying to unify the work you do with these documents in one binary flow, where you can use, for example, data input in the drafter stage of a document to actually manage it properly afterwards. So I'm not going to dive too much into exactly what we do with these. I can just tell you that the vision is to replace a lot of manual stuff in the different stages of working with legal documents. And what we will be focusing on today is actually only in the drafting stage of legal documents. That's where we will be looking into different building blocks, and that is the basis for building the legal tech companies today. A little bit about our environment and where we operate, how we operate. We are based in Denmark, and I'm not sure everybody knows what what and where Denmark is. It's a super small country in the northern part of Europe, extremely cold at the moment and quite depressing most days. However, what we do have when it comes to legal tech is we have an extremely high degree of digitization in the society, especially our public organizations have at this point zero communication by paper with the citizens of Denmark. Pretty much everything you can do with the Danish state is handled digitally at this point. And that really paves the way for developing legal tech companies that can integrate with multiple levels the Danish government. It's a lot of fun. We have in recent years seen a significant easing on legislation related to legal tech. You can start pretty much what you want. You have the largest law firms starting their own legal tech companies, experimenting with different stuff. You have organizations, even NGOs, starting up legal tech initiatives, legal tech companies. And this has really created a foundation for a super vibrant ecosystem where we at this point, besides having like just 5.8 million citizens, we have probably around 200 to 250 legal tech companies that are approaching a seed stage. So there is a lot of opportunity if you like to do legal tech and legal design in Denmark. And the final thing that's actually been a huge part of boosting the industry as a whole and how we operate in Contractbook is that we've seen an extremely high willingness from law firms to collaborate with legal tech companies and trying to figure out how you can leverage that in the everyday workings of law firms. Legal Tech 101. This is to give you a very, very simple introduction to legal tech and what it is and what I mean when I say legal tech. And I've been unable to coin it any simpler than just legal tech is a broad definition of technologies associated with delivering legal services. That's pretty much it. It's not AI, it doesn't have to be blockchain, you don't need a robot to have legal tech. It's pretty much the tools you would use on an everyday basis. So Clio, even Word would be a legal tech solution that you use in delivering legal services, Outlook, iManage, stuff like that. So this is just to take all the fanciness out of legal tech and just say it's super, super simple. Like really don't overcomplicate it. You can make it extremely complicated and build robots. You can also take it for what it is. One thing that we very, very often encounter when we discuss legal tech is that people mix up legal tech, reg tech, innovation, AI, and all of a sudden it just becomes a lot of buzzwords that you are dropping ongoingly and nobody knows what it means. So you end up sitting at a conference where someone goes up on stage and starts talking about either AI or innovation and legal tech, and everybody just kind of nods along to avoid looking stupid, but nobody really has any idea what anybody else like means when they say innovation, when they say legal tech. So I'm going to offer my interpretation of innovation and legal tech, and it's actually like fairly simple. So innovation in the legal industry would be defined as anything new that creates value. And the differentiator in this definition would really be anything that creates value, because for a 1,000-man law firm, value is definitely something else than for a one-man law firm. So innovation is subjective. You can take it for what it is, and you can interpret it however you want. But in the end, it needs to be something new that creates value. And for the purpose of this, I have just given a few of the, I would say, the very progressive ways of leveraging pure innovation in the legal industry at this point. One of the key factors for a lot of larger law firms in Scandinavia or legal professionals in general is the ability to do legal project management. So it seems pretty strange to a corporate that they engage with a management consulting house like Deloitte, KPMG, PwC. They get a full quote and a project plan for what is going to happen when they need to solve strategic issues. When they go to a law firm, they just kind of open a tab. And then, yeah, this is like, we can solve it. We don't know how long it's going to take. We're just going to pay by the hour. So actually managing legal projects professionally, like you would working with a professional international accounting house or management consulting house, That's one innovation happening in the legal industry in Scandinavia right now. It has nothing to do with legal tech. You can fix it using pen and paper, but it's definitely an innovation happening right now. The other one is subscription-based legal services. A lot, especially medium-sized enterprises, they want to be able to predict how much money they're going to spend on legal work for a year. So then law firms started introducing subscription-based legal services where they say, okay, you can get all the sparring you want within these particular practice areas. It can be like basic corporate law, employment law, different variations of IT law, and then you're pretty much covered if in 95% of the cases you would have during a year, and you can kind of forecast how much you would use on legal services. Not like the biggest innovation in other professional services industries, but for the legal industry, it seems like this is the way things are going. It would definitely be, in my mind, categorized an innovation, and still doesn't have to be related at all to legal tech. So the last one is drive your client to work. I think that's actually pretty awesome. It was a medium-sized law firm actually starting to leverage this. So partners, paralegals, pretty much anyone offered to just bring coffee, bring some breakfast, drive your clients to work, and that generated like a huge amount of work for them to do after this project was over. So fun thing to do, still an innovation, doesn't have to have anything to do with technology. So in the other end of the spectrum, legal tech, as I mentioned earlier, it does not have to be complicated at all. It just have to be related to the technologies you use to deliver legal services. And in the crosshairs of innovation and legal tech, you could definitely find like various companies that are both. So innovative legal tech. During the Corona pandemic, I think a very large portion of law firms have started seeing the value in leveraging digital solutions like Microsoft Teams or Slack to actually service clients in new ways. And they even realized that this is something that clients or their peers really want. Like they don't want to have letters sent with a lot of documentation. They don't want to have to call every time you have a super simple question that you can put in a single sentence. They just want new ways of being serviced. So this is just to kind of cut out what I mean when I say innovation and when I say legal tech and how these two intertwine. So this brings me to actually my last point in Legal Tech 101. So why is legal technology, design, and really innovation so interesting in regards to the legal industry? And this is something that, well, we're spending a lot of time on. The first point to why this is extremely interesting is that it is probably by far the most precedence-born industry you can find. And with precedence-born, I mean you do things and you make decisions based on history, based on law, based on previous rulings. From a technology point of view, there's probably nothing that technology loves more than to make decisions based on what have happened previously. The worst thing you can add, like pretty much any machine learning algorithm to do, is make decision based on how the future should be. But if you have something that are more or less 100% precedence-born, you have a pretty good foundation for establishing like predictive analytics. So you can kind of predict what is the outcome of things based on what have happened previously. The other thing is that the legal industry is pretty much in constant growth, between 5 to 8% in Europe at least for larger law firms. This is super interesting because if you want to enter an industry, you would probably want to take one that's not currently dying out, but rather take one that's in constant growth. And what is pretty extraordinary is that for other enterprises, you would see that when you have recessions or you have like economic cycles changing, they actually start losing money and they need to bootstrap and fire people and cut down on marketing. For law firms, they just switch over from doing M&A transactions to actually doing like bankruptcies. So pretty much no matter what happens, you just keep growing. The third one is legislative protection. In most countries, you have some fairly harsh legislation dictating, for example, that only lawyers are allowed to provide legal services, only lawyers are allowed to own law firms, only lawyers well, you can't have lawyers acting as lawyers in private companies that are not categorized as law firms. So when these kinds of legislations that has protected the industry and have made sure that there is really no force to actually drive innovation, when these are lifted, and that's what we are seeing, at least in the Scandinavian markets right now, you have a ton of legal tech companies moving in, just waiting to take over that market. And really, from the law firm's point of view, at this point, it's even hurting them more than it's actually benefiting them with the legislative protection, because we're starting to see huge multinational law firms like DLA Piper or Axiom. In the UK, there is no requirement that law firms can only be owned by lawyers. So what they do is they raise a ton of money with IPOs in the UK, and then they just enter small markets like Denmark and take over the market with £2 billion in their pockets. And because you can't have external money coming into Danish law firms yet, because it has to be owned by lawyers, you're pretty fucked as a law firm. So there's starting to be a lot of reasons for why this legislative protection doesn't make sense anymore, even from a law firm perspective. You have super low research and development expenditure in the law firm industry as a whole, which should suggest that there is a lot of room for improvement and new initiatives. You have like severe inertia, something that I think pretty much anyone engaged in the legal industry have experienced. And the most common phrase would probably be something like, things are going pretty well, why change something that's working? It's pretty horrible. It's pretty hard to fight when you have the legislative protection. You see, in general, law firms and legal professionals earning a lot of money. But this also paves the way that when no change has been happening for a lot of years, there is a huge opportunity in actually starting to change things. And then the last point is high earnings. Like, you want to be in an industry where there are actually money to be had if you want to start up a new company. So this was pretty much it from Legal Tech 101, what we do in Contractbook very briefly and the market we operate in. What I want to do now is I want to dive into what it actually means building legal tech solutions. I want to introduce the building blocks that we will be working with today. And I want to not go 100% in depth with each of the building blocks, but I just want to give you guys an idea of what they are and how they work by giving some live demonstrations of what they look like when they're actually implemented. So what we'll be working with today, the 4 building blocks that we have. First of all, marketing pages. There is absolutely nothing fancy about this. It's a website to present your legal tech offerings. But we'll be taking a look at what they look like, what they feel like, what they contain. Secondly, we will be looking at what we call logins and dashboards. What these are is actually just a simple login, and behind the login, you have some material. It's not fancy at all, but from a, I would say, corporate design perspective, actually designing your legal tech company, what logins and dashboards enables you to do, it enables you to create areas where people need a login to actually access the documents and services that you offer. And this is interesting because it enables you to start charging subscriptions for actually gaining access to content that you as legal professionals can keep upgrading and updating ongoingly. People are usually willing to do that. So it paves the way for a new business model, but I'll get back to all of these individually. We will also be looking into document automation. This is really the foundation of the legal tech company we will be building today. There's nothing fancy about document automation either. I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible and show you how it works. But this is really the core of the companies we'll be creating today. So the ability for people to draft their own legal documents, answering questionnaires. And the final thing we'll be looking into is associating simple legal services with the development of legal documents. So for example, when someone drafts a legal agreement, an employment agreement, pretty much anything, they can request to have a legal check by a legal professional and paying for such services associated with the documents. So those are the items we will be working with today. So jumping right in, first thing we'll be looking into, marketing pages. There is absolutely nothing fancy about these marketing pages. You can build them in pretty much any website builder you have, Webflow, WordPress, anything you want. The idea of the marketing page is that when you establish a legal tech company, you will, for the most part, need a digital platform to actually share the services that you offer. And this is like the duty of the marketing page. It is the gateway to the services you offer, either to corporates or private clients. And I'm just going to jump a little bit out here, and I'm just going to show you what it looks like in real life. I'm sorry that this is in Danish. This is one of the pages that we've been building. There is nothing fancy about these pages. What I wanted to show you is that these pages are built for Danish corporates to be able to generate the documentation they need to establish a company in Denmark. So this is a law firm. They have established a legal tech company. They say, okay, we earn zero money from just doing these repetitive documents. Let's automate them. Let's enable people to draft them themselves. And then we just charge a little bit for those documents. So you press create. You are requested to input an email address in here, which is the document automation part. You press continue, and you are ready to begin the journey of drafting your documents for establishing a company. Another marketing page, just to show you from what we do in Contractbook. This could be a subscription-based legal tech company. Again, super simple website, introducing the plans you can buy. On each of the plans, there could be like a certain amount of documents. Let's say you want to create a legal portal targeted at the human resources industry and all the human resources managers in medium-sized enterprises. So what you do is you create a simple plan that has like 5 to 10 documents and a legal hotline. You create an advanced plan that has 25 documents, a legal hotline, and a legal help desk. And then like you create a larger plan. But there's nothing fancy about it. It is marketing pages, it's websites, nothing more to it. So the next one we have, logins and dashboards. Now this becomes a little bit more complicated to work with, because logins and dashboards, in its essence, it's not very complicated. It is the ability to add a login button to a website to select which clients will have access to what is behind the login using their email address. So you have 10 clients, they have 10 email addresses. You put those 10 email addresses in a list, and now they have access. But what this is used for, it is used for creating a private area where you can offer, for example, services such as a legal hotline, policies and handbooks, news, a legal desk, specific documents, and stuff like that. So taking a look at what that looks like, jumping back out here and in here. So this is just a demonstration setup I created. I've taken an email address here. It could be like hidden behind any login button. So on your own legal tech company's website, you add a login button. When you press the button, it just sends you to this link. Then you have the login screen fully white labeled in your own colors, your own schemas, whatever you want. The client then uses their own email. They press continue. They use the password that you have given them. Like this. And then they log in and they are authenticated into the solution where they can access the items you have made available to them. So in this demonstration setup, we have just created a few different categories, like a general category with a non-disclosure agreement, a letter of intent, and a power of attorney. A sales category, which has 3 documents, like a contract demonstration, a sales and purchase agreement, and a service and onboarding agreement. And then in the top here, you have some services. So from a business perspective here, you would tell people, okay, you can gain access to a group of standard legal documents to use in your enterprise to run your company day to day. You also have access to some services, and for that you pay us 200 euros a month in subscription fees. People are usually willing to do that. It solves a headache for them. It makes the expenditure predictable, and they can generate all the documents by themselves. And I'll get back to the document automation part of things to just let you know how that works. But this is actually the functionality of the logins in the dashboard. Create a private area, give people access, they can use services and different documents in here. Just to let you know, like show you what it looks like, you have a read more option here where you can read about the agreement you're about to draft. And if you say, okay, this sounds reasonable, this is the agreement I need, you press create document, you are redirected to the document and you start drafting the document through document automation. Super, super simple. So this is just a service made available through the dashboard. Going back into the presentation here, we went over the logins and dashboards. Now we will be looking into what is the core value of the solutions you will be looking to building today. So this is really document automation. And I've really tried to make it as simple as possible. There is absolutely nothing hard about document automation. It's been around since like 1999, when the first companies started commercializing it. And the idea is really that you answer a dynamic questionnaire, and based on this questionnaire, you generate a legal document. So if you just think of the logic that if the answer is something, then you show something else in the document. And that could, for example, be for an employment agreement. If you are not covered by a union, so that would be if answer to union equals no, then remove a union clause in document. Super, super simple. Like there's nothing hard about it. It's simple logic. And again, it's been around for 20 years at this point. So the technology and the logic have not developed a lot since then. Just to show you what that actually looks like. So I can actually jump, if I can actually hit the mark here. There we go. Here we go. So for example, for this non-disclosure agreement, you would start by filling in information about who is the supplier in this agreement. You would fill in what is the registration number. You would choose some company information, like who is the company actually engaging in this non-disclosure agreement with the supplier. You would input some information about the agreement. For example, I want to supply software to the company. Wow, that was poorly. This. You would choose whether the NDA should govern one or several agreements. And these are one of the cases where, depending on what you choose here, it has different outputs in the document. If I am ever in doubt what to answer to either of these questions, for example, the description of the services, I have access to a tooltip. Now, these tooltips can be in a text format like this, which is fairly simple to understand. It's just a description of what you need to be aware of when describing the services. If you do something that's even more user-friendly, we have another setup, which are these, where you can see we have contributed videos as part of the tooltips in here. And you would just press the video, it would open up like this, and it would explain exactly what it is you need to keep in mind when answering the question. So everything we do in regards to document automation is meant to enable users or clients to generate documents by themselves. So it's an autonomous flow where you don't have a lawyer supervising people doing it. They're just able to do it themselves by actually guiding them through the experience of drafting these documents. Now, it's not about drafting extremely complicated legal documents, but a lot of people, like 9 out of 10 agreements they use are so simple that you can easily automate them in a solution like this. Once you have actually generated these agreements, you have answered all the questions, you press next. And what you have is the agreement in a preview stage. So for this agreement, you can only see the beginning of it. And that's because this agreement is sold on a pay-per-use basis. So just to give you some background of the company actually leveraging this solution, these guys are responsible for about 50% of all civil law documents in Denmark. So they generate thousands and thousands of power of attorneys, wills, pretty much anything related to private law. And these are one of the solutions where people can just buy a power of attorney that they have generated themselves. So when I press continue to payment in here, I'm requested to input credit card information. like this, and then I can download the document afterwards and take it out. It's as simple as that. So document automation is simply put, you answer questions. The questions determine the finalized legal document. Some questions are meant for inputting information. Some questions are meant for controlling which particular sections are put into the document. And that's pretty much it. Like it's not more complicated than that. The final item I want to go over with you guys is the services. So I'm actually going to jump back to the dashboard here, because as you can see, we have contributed a few services up here. And these services are fully customizable. And the idea is really that even though you can enable people to draft legal agreements more or less autonomously by themselves, for some of the agreements, it feels good to have additional services. For example, a legal hotline, if you have a simple question you need to ask. Have an email desk in the form of just sending an email like, hey, I'm starting an employee part-time. Can I use this particular agreement in the dashboard? You can also add a news flow. So if you created a legal portal like this, targeted at human resource departments, and you have a lot of human resource documents in here, you can add a news flow, like what should people be aware of when it comes to civil law? No, actually like human resource related matters from a legal perspective. So people are always 100% up to date on what they need to be aware of in the industry. These are like 100% customizable. You should not be limited by what I've shown you now. What I have shown you right now is just to give you an idea of how it works in practice. But when you actually start creating the ideas for the companies themselves, you should just like come up with pretty much any idea you have. Like if you can think it, it can probably be built. Jumping back to the presentation here, I have went over document automation, I have went over services, and now I would like to show you what the structure of a solution actually looks like. So this is to give you an idea of how things are connected before we jump into the actual workshop. So the foundation, or the core pillar in the legal tech companies you will be establishing today will be, well, autonomous document automation. So the ability for users to actually generate their own legal documents. And just to give you an idea of what these documents might be, it could be power of attorney, it could be wills. If you go into more corporate documents, it could be employment agreements, non-disclosure agreements, consultancy agreements, pretty much anything in that regard. It's all about choosing what type of documents would make sense. It could also be like simple forms that you use to interact with the government, that you use to sell stuff, that you use to rent an apartment. It's 100% free form, but choose simple documents that can actually be automated. So once you have the very first, or the very first 3 or 5 documents automated in your solution, and this is like way down the road after today's workshop, when you have the first 5 documents, you have added a payment solution to them, and they cost like X amount of money. So you've added the payment solution, and now you have your first legal tech company. So at this point, people go in, they generate a document, they pay for the document, you earn some money. You just need to keep the documents updated with recent legislation at all times, and then you're good. Like you have the foundation of your legal tech company right there. So then you have your services or your product in the form of document automation, you have your payment. Now you need to make people aware of what you're selling. So then you add the website. You make it super fancy. You make sure it targets your audience appropriately. If your audience is a startup incubator, you need to make it with a lot of illustrations, a lot of smileys, very visual. If you're targeting large legal departments, it's probably going to be more light blue, boring colors, not a lot of fanciness, not a lot of explosive stuff on your website. But that's really about making your services available to a broader population. So after you have your website, you need to drive some traffic to it. If you have like no money, usually content marketing or organic organic growth through Google is a pretty good idea. If you do have some money to actually brand it, paid marketing through Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, whatever you have. The idea is you have your product, you have your method of payment. Now you need some traffic to actually earn money on this. After you started generating some traffic, then you need to add some services, because the services, it makes sure that people likes what you offer more. They feel like you are holding their hand through the experience. But the services also enables you to earn more money on the traffic you actually generate to your website. So previously, someone found your website, they generated an employment agreement, they paid for it, that was it. Now they have the option to actually buy a legal tech or legal check on top of the document, and you earn more money, you offer a better service. Then that's when things, this is actually the foundation of the legal tech company, and this is when you can start making things more complicated and a lot more interesting. Because after you added your services, then you can add your subscriptions. So you add your login to your website, because people, they keep coming back to generate new documents. Then you say, okay, instead of you paying for the individual document and the service every time, how about we just create a subscription with you? You pay us a monthly fee, and then you can use the platform all you want. So then you add like another spectrum. This is a new business model, and you earn money on your legal tech company more predictably. Then you add, then you're ready to take in some serious traffic. And then you realize that actually bank, insurances, pension funds, organizations, they have a ton of members. Like banks have a lot of corporate clients, they have a lot of private clients. Private clients need to generate power of attorneys, they need to generate wills, they need an easy way to fill out government forms. For corporates, they need employment agreements, they need the ability to establish companies. Then you make like a partnership agreement with the bank, and then you gain access to 200,000 clients that are now coming through your solution. Then you start earning a lot of money in your company. And then finally, you add the lead aspect, because there will undoubtedly be stuff that you cannot service in your small but very successful legal tech company. A large corporation asking, hey, can you help us do like a due diligence process or something like that? That's when you start cooperating with a larger law firm, and you start actually selling leads to the law firm for large, high-value cases. The modules that we will be working with today in the workshop are these four. So the document automation, or the document you choose as the foundation of the solution. The payment models you choose. Should it be subscription? Should it be pay-per-use? Should it be for free just to generate leads? Should it be no cure, no pay? How would you like to approach this? You can also leverage like subscription-based payments, and then you will need to choose what services you want to apply to your solution as well. So that concludes my presentation. Pretty much, yeah, somewhat on time. What I want to do now is I want to introduce you to what you will be doing next. So I'm just going to jump in here. I'm going to jump to not this, but to.
Sorry, just a quick question. There are some questions on the chat. Would you like to answer them before the workshop or after it?
Yeah, I think we can. We still have 50 minutes.
Okay, maybe just quick, very quick Q&A, and then we can directly get into the workshop. You know, like you will explain, and then we go to the workshop. What do you think? Or would you like to explain the workshop first?
No, I think if I take the questions first, that will hopefully clear out the questions for the workshop, and there will also be room for Q&A after. So I can do the questions first. First question is logic not being simple for a lot of people. Yeah, I understand that. For me, it actually took 2 or 3 days grasping the logic, then trying to figure out how to simplifying it as much as possible. You can do extremely complicated logic for very complicated agreements, but if you stick to the logic being, if the answer is something, then you show something else. Then that is usually when actually diving into document automation. I know we don't have time for that today. you'll usually be able to grasp it fairly quickly. And the more complicated parts of document automation, at this point, there are so many no-code options for document automation that even like you don't need to learn simple coding. You can do it almost by dragging and dropping and connecting dots from questions to answers and stuff like that. So I think it should be okay for pretty much anyone to grasp the logic of making these. About like cyber security risks and any data breaches, that's a fairly extensive conversation. I think most legal tech companies operating with law firms will be vetted extremely heavily when it comes to cybersecurity risks. When you look into establishing a legal tech company, especially what we are doing today, we would be providing all the software for you guys to do that. Like we have the platform to do it. So you would just be configuring on top of that platform, and thereby the cybersecurity risk, you would still be responsible to your clients in regards to this, but it would really be our setup that would be the baseline for actually creating that. And since we are vetted by law firms and banks constantly, we keep a very high cybersecurity risk assessment squad to actually do stuff like that. So you wouldn't have to worry too much about that when starting these kind of companies. Was there a case in Germany that such a service was declared illegal, as the contract drafting is a legal service which needs to come from a lawyer? How is the situation in Denmark? Actually, the case in Germany, I believe, was declared not legal, because what was disputed was that these kinds of services with document drafting was a legal service, and it was offered by a company that was not a law firm. But what was actually determined in the case was that this kind of technology is not advanced enough to be regarded as a legal service. Like it cannot personalize the service enough to actually be counted as a legal service. So it was declared, to my knowledge, not illegal because the service was not a legal service. In Denmark, it is pretty much the same situation. We usually tell people that we do not give direct legal advice. So when we actually contribute services like a legal hotline, we usually make a partnership with a smaller law firm, and then they are contacted through the services pane instead of us being contacted. That usually solves the issue. So we can say, yes, this is a viable legal hotline where you can get legal advice, but it is not provided by us, it is provided by our partner. Why the client will pay for this service when he have it from his lawyer? Well, in Denmark, you would probably pay about 1,500 euros for a will developed by a lawyer. When you use the systems or the automation solutions that we create, you pay 100 euros. So about 1/15 of the price you would pay a regular lawyer for actually doing the same type of work. Pretty much the same is true for any of the other self-service solutions that we have. It can be compared a little bit to the banking industry, moving from having cashiers sitting and making deposits and withdrawals. You would pay them something like 10 euros to do a deposit or a withdrawal. Now you do everything by yourself. You pay nothing for it because it's 100% self-service. The same idea is true for what we built. One of the reasons might be that the client has to chase the countersignee to guide it for filling out the contract. Such services can automate and take over some of the communication needs here. Well, the service that we would be providing with a solution like this would actually just be generating the first draft of the agreement. So if the agreement is not a boilerplate, like a non-disclosure agreement where it's take it or leave it, you would probably, in a traditional sense, take the document out in a Word format and then just start sending it back and forth for commenting and negotiation with a counterparty. We have in the Contractbook platform the ability to do this cloud-based, so exporting the document directly to a cloud-based editor, but I'll not be diving into that today. There's a comment here from Ebru about dropping your questions. Please feel free to do that. How is the retention rate? Well, we have a net churn rate over the year on 0.4%. So out of our 120,000 clients, we have about 0.4% leaving us on a yearly basis. So from a law firm perspective, if you apply something like this, it will probably yield some fairly high retention numbers for your clients as well as a lot of data about how they are generating legal documents. Next questions. I would assume that especially law firms would be very jumpy about data collected and retained by Contractbook. How do you handle that? For example, is data kept in local servers for these clients? I would say in general, the markets we operate in, which would be the northern part of Europe, Scandinavia, the Netherlands, Germany, England, people are very happy about the cloud. So when it comes, and this is, I'm going to try to keep it not very technical, but we would store every piece of data on an Amazon Web Services server located in Frankfurt with pretty much the highest security package you can have, and do full segregation of data so the individual law firm can have that data in a designated database for it. If you want to have a private cloud on-prem solution, that would be other deployment options. I'm not gonna jump into that, but just to let you know that yes, you are exactly right. Law firms are extremely jumpy about data and how we store it. However, with the very open, like the open-mindedness to cloud is making it a lot easier for companies like us to do stuff like this. As Ebru mentioned, please keep the questions coming. There will be room for a Q&A after the workshop. But what I would like to do now is just jump into this this workshop.